Welcome, everyone. We are live with a new episode of Level Up Law. Every Tuesday at noon, South Carolina Legal Services levels up your legal knowledge about an area of law that we practice in. And we also often feature our partners in the legal field on Level Up Law. Today, we are delighted to bring you an episode on registering home births with attorney Charlotte Osmer from our Greenville office. I'm Susan Engel, Senior Staff Attorney and host of Level Up Law. And as always, our producer, Kenneth Elliott from our IT department, is here to make sure everything is running properly for us today. I do want to mention that Charlotte has a great presentation ready for you guys. And if there are questions that you have, she can answer those at the end. Now, remember, we can't give legal advice, but she may be able to answer some general questions. So before we go ahead, remember that if you need the help of a lawyer for this or any other type of legal matter that we handle here at Legal Services, call our intake line or apply online. All of that information will be provided for you at the end of today's presentation. Also, as a reminder, all of our episodes are posted by our producer, Kenneth Elliott, to our Level Up Law playlist on the YouTube channel for South Carolina Legal Services. And again, we remind you this is not legal advice, just general information for the public, but it's important information, so we're glad you're here. If you will just put any questions that you have for Charlotte in the question box on your screen, that'd be great, and we'll bring those up at the conclusion of her presentation. So Charlotte, let's get started.
All right, thanks so much, Susie, and thanks, Kenneth, for all your producing. So yes, we're here today to learn how to register a home birth in South Carolina. So in today's presentation, I'm just going to briefly talk about some statistics related to home births. Then we're going to talk about how to register an attended home birth versus an unattended home birth and what the difference is. And if you're unable to register a home birth, how to go about doing that using a delayed birth certificate or getting a birth certificate by court order. So I'm going to talk about some things today, so I thought I'd go over some of the common terminology I'm going to use today. So first, an attended home birth means a licensed midwife or physician was in attendance for the home birth. Conversely, an unattended home birth means a child was born at home without the assistance of a licensed midwife or physician. So the mother could have been at home with their spouse, intimate partner, or family member. In South Carolina, a licensed midwife means somebody who provides prenatal care, primary assistance in the birth process, initial care of the newborn, postpartum care of the mother, and a follow-up on both. Midwife deliveries are generally conducted in the home, and currently there are 45 licensed midwives in South Carolina. And when I say DHEC, I am referring to the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control, and primarily how it pertains to this presentation, the Department of Vital Records. So home births, let's talk about some South Carolina and national statistics related to home births. So in 2019, there were a total of 53,453 births in South Carolina. Of those births, only 368 were home births. In 2020, there were a total of 52,080 births, and of those births, only 582 were home births. So in 2019, it was 0.68% of births in South Carolina were home births versus a significant jump that we saw in 2020, where it jumps to 1.12%. So this was a 44% increase in home births from 2019 to 2020. Maybe it's related to the pandemic, and there were so many restrictions in place that maybe people felt more comfortable having home births. Unfortunately, we do not have the statistics for 2021 or 2022 yet. Those have not been released by DHEC, so it'll be curious to see if this is an ongoing upward trend or if it was just something that happened for 2020 and 2021. But as you can see, we have the data for the past 10 years. And so in the second to last column on the right, you can see how home births were trending upwards. Obviously, we saw a significant jump from 2019 to 2020. So like I said, it'll be curious to see once the data is released for 2021 and 2022. So how does South Carolina compare nationally? The CDC also issued their National Vital Statistic Report, and they reported that the percentage of home births in the United States rose from 1.03% to 1.26% from 2019 to 2020. So they saw an increase of 22% in the amount of home births from 2019 to 2020. Again, we don't have the data for 2021 and 2022, but like I said, it should be interesting to see once that information is released. So how to register an attended home birth. Remember, that's when you have a licensed physician or midwife attending the home birth. So who reports it? It's going to be that licensed midwife or physician who is in attendance at the live birth. And how do they do that? Well, they prepare a worksheet and a report, and they certify that the child was born alive with all the required birth information. And when do they have to do it? Within 5 calendar days of the birth. So it's pretty straightforward if you're having an attended home birth. So how to register an unattended home birth. So if there's an unattended home birth, if the mother and the child are examined at a medical institution within 5 calendar days of the birth, that medical institution has the authority then to report that birth to DHEC. Otherwise, the mother will be required to do it with the required documentary evidence. So how would she do this? She's going to need evidence of the pregnancy, evidence that the infant was born alive, and evidence of the mother's presence in the state of South Carolina on the date of the birth, in addition to the birth facts: name, date of birth, place of birth, gender, and parents. Sometimes additional evidence is in support of the facts of the birth may be required, and that's completely up to the discretion of DHEC in making that determination. So when DHEC has cause to question the validity or adequacy of the documentary evidence submitted for an unattended home birth, then a court order will be needed. And we're going to talk about how we do that. So when does the mother have to register an unattended home birth? Again, within 5 calendar days. That's the requirement with DHEC. It doesn't matter if that child was born in a hospital or attended home birth or unattended home birth. The requirement is within 5 calendar days. However, if a report of live birth is submitted after the 5 calendar days, but within 1 year, as long as the registration is otherwise compliant, it will be registered on a standard format birth certificate. Any reports after 1 year will be registered on the special delayed certificate of birth form. Now, this is why is this important? So as you see on this slide, on the left is you can see what a regular standard birth certificate looks like here for the state of South Carolina. On the right, that's what a delayed birth certificate looks like, and they're different. And so while for the state of South Carolina, you shouldn't have any issues, whether you have a standard birth certificate form versus a delayed birth certificate form, it does matter if you go out of state or need federal services. So many federal and state offices or state offices in other states do not give delayed birth certificates the same weight they give to that conventional birth certificate that we just saw. And they scrutinize the facts stated more carefully, including the supporting documentation. The better the documentation or testimony provided to support each fact, the more willing those offices are going to accept the delayed birth certificate. So let's say you're born in South Carolina, you needed a delayed birth certificate, and then later you moved to Florida. You know, it's going to be up to Florida to determine whether they're going to accept your delayed birth certificate from South Carolina, or whether you need to apply for a passport. As you can see on the right of your screen, you know, we have, this is what a delayed birth certificate by court order looks like. And as you can see on the bottom half, this is all the information that we used in order to establish my client's name, date of birth, place of birth, gender, and the parents. So we used as much evidence as we could locate in support of that, in addition to testimony. And so that's included in the court order. And then when you submit the request to DHEC, they will extrapolate that information and add it here on the certificate, a delayed birth certificate. So you can see how important it is to include as much information, and that's way to justify all your birth facts. So what about the father? So how do you add a father to a birth certificate? If the mother was not married at the time of birth, but subsequent marries the father, then the parents can then start the legitimation process with DHEC. And they simply, you know, in normal circumstances, just have to provide a marriage certificate and a sworn, an affidavit, which is a sworn statement to DHEC regarding paternity. If the mother was not married and a father is recorded on the birth certificate, but it turns out he is not the father, and you want to add the correct father to the birth certificate, you're going to need to go to court to establish paternity and get a court order to amend that birth certificate. If the mother was married at the time of the child's birth, then the husband is usually going to be listed as the father. However, if the mother was married, but the husband is not the father, the husband will still be considered the presumed legal father. And so in that situation, let's say you have husband and wife been married for years, but they've been separated for, let's say, 10 years, and then the mother wife gives birth to a child, and the husband is not the father. It's possible that he will not be listed on the birth certificate, but if that mother wants to add the correct father to the birth certificate, they're going to need a court order to establish paternity. And so you're going to need to name the husband as the presumed legal father, and then the man who is in fact the father of that child. So there's two ways to do that delayed birth certificate that we talked just a moment ago. And there's the administrative way, and that is that you go directly to DHEC and you present the evidence they require in order to issue an administrative delayed birth certificate. So the minimum facts that need to be established by documentary evidence is a full name, date of birth, place of birth, full name of the mother prior to the first marriage, and full name of the father if the parents are married at the time of birth. Otherwise, a father will not be entered on a delayed birth certificate unless a child is adopted, legitimated, or paternity has been determined by court order or paternity acknowledgement. So you need documentary evidence. What do you need? So for anything related to the name, date of birth, and place of birth, you need 3 pieces of acceptable documentary evidence. For parentage, you only need 1 piece of documentary evidence. The acceptability of evidence is going to be determined by DHEC. That's solely at their discretion. Evidence has to be from an independent source in the original form or a duly certified copy. Anybody who's over the age of 10, that documentary evidence must have been established for at least 10 years. And if for anybody who's under the age of 10, they will accept documentary evidence that's been established for at least 1 year. So what types of evidence can you use? School records is a really good one. You can get those certified from the school, from the last one you attended. Medical records are also helpful. Social Security records is going to be one of the best ones you can get. If you can apply for what's called a numidant. The numidant is the original application for Social Security, and that will contain all the birth facts. And so that one will have the name of the child, the place of birth, date of birth, and who the parents are. So that is that's probably the only record, sometimes school records, but usually that's the only record that will contain all birth facts. So that is one of the best documents that you can get. It's called a numidant. Vital records, let's say you're an adult seeking to do a delayed birth certificate. As an adult, maybe you've been married and had children, your marriage license, your children's birth certificates, those are good documents to use that will list your birth name, usually your date of birth, maybe your place of birth. Ownership documentation, if you own a home, vehicle, if you have military record, voter registration records, financial records, if you have bank records, insurance policies, and tax records. So let's say that you were not able to establish that birth certificate administratively with DHEC, then you're going to need to do a delayed birth certificate established by court order. And so that petition has to allege that the petitioner was born in the state, that no record of the birth exists, and that the petitioner has failed to produce the minimum required documentation for DHEC to establish a delayed birth certificate administratively. Also needed is a certification that has to be attached to the petition that DHEC has no record of the birth that has been located in the state. It's a single-page document. It does have a seal on it. It has to be attached to the petition, and it says that they checked all their records but could not locate a record of that petitioner's birth. Once that has been filed and DHEC has been served with appropriate notice, the petitioner will have to attend a hearing and present evidence and testimony to establish name, gender at birth, place of birth, county of birth, full name of the mother and father, and any subsequent name or gender changes. And if the court is satisfied, then the court will issue an order with the birth facts. And then that is sent on to DHEC, who will then issue that birth certificate, as you saw as an example that we used in a previous screen. So that's it for our presentation today. If you need any legal assistance, this is the telephone intake service number that we have. It's open Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can also apply online. Susie, did you want me to continue on to the QR code slide or wait a little bit?
Yeah, let's give it a minute for any questions that might come in. I don't see any yet, but yeah, if you can go ahead and we'll move to the next slide. I want to tell our listeners and viewers that we welcome any suggestions about topics for Level Up Law. We certainly have a number of episodes already on our playlist that might be of interest to you if you go check it out there. But if you have a particular topic that you would like us to cover, have one of our attorneys cover for you, we welcome that. So just scan this QR code and that'll take you right to a form where you can send in your idea. And we definitely welcome all of those suggestions. So Charlotte, let's leave that there for just a little bit longer so people can scan that code. Looking to double check, but we don't have any questions. It was a very thorough presentation, so I don't see any questions, which is understandable. It's definitely interesting how many different ways there are to actually have a home birth and the different ways that you have to go about getting these registered based on the facts of any given case. So I do want to invite anyone who is viewing right now, and Charlotte, let's go ahead and move to that final slide. This is how you can connect with South Carolina Legal Services. You can apply online if you would like to see if we can help you with your legal matter, whether it's registering a home birth or any other legal topic that is one that we cover. We don't obviously cover all legal topics. And we have a toll-free number that you can call to apply as well. That one is open Monday through Thursday from 9 to 6, I believe. But the online is, of course, open 24/7, and that's a good way to do it as well if the schedule of telephone intake doesn't work for you. And then all of our legal social media connections are here for you, and I really urge our viewers and listeners to go ahead and sign up for those. And we put out a lot of great information, and also links to our information and resources can be found in social media posts that we have, but also just on our websites. You can find a lot of great information. I've got that QR code there that you can scan one more time. That is for signing up for our newsletter. We'll be having our next newsletter come out soon, and you want to be all signed up for that. Just scan that QR code and that will take you to the newsletter sign up form. We definitely invite everybody to do that. So no other questions. So that concludes the presentation for today. Charlotte, I want to thank you for a wonderful presentation, very succinct and right to the point, and it, as always, a really good one. We can always thank you for doing Level Up Law. As always, we will post a recording of today's episode on the playlist on our YouTube channel. Just go there and look for that playlist, and when you go there, if you found this presentation helpful, I'm sure you did, or you think it may be helpful to someone else, please share the video from our YouTube channel. It's very easy to do. And while you're there, it's also very easy to subscribe to our channel. And we need as many subscribers as we can get so we can get out all this important information to our viewers. Not only people who might need us as their lawyer, but also those who serve them in other ways and can let them know about the services that we offer. And while you're there, we want you to also sign up for those notifications. So every time we post a new video, whether it's a Level Up Law episode or some other video that we are putting on our YouTube channel, you can know that that's gotten posted, and you can check it out and see if it's of interest to you. So again, I want to thank Charlotte. I want to thank our audience as well. And of course, as always, producer Kenneth Elliott, we appreciate everything you're doing behind the scenes to make sure everything works for us. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Level Up Law. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks to Charlotte Osma for a great presentation. And that concludes today's webinar. Take care, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.